Tom, thought we'd start with this unusual reaction, or maybe it's not, from Eric Duhem. So he's watching Quebec Solidaire crumble all around him. And he picked on, I guess it was Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois' use of the word pragmatism as to how he wants to reshape the party, and suggesting, from what I can see, that, disillusioned QS members consider joining the Conservative Party of Quebec. What'd you think?
Well, there's this great Quebec expression that I'll give in the original version and then translate. Il doit être en train de fumer du bon. He must have found something really good to smoke if he thinks that there's anything in common between the average voter for Quebec Solidaire and his party and what it stands for. I read in every detail the piece that he wrote in Le Devoir, where he tried to explain this to an incredulous public, including me. And I have to say that I was not convinced that there are a lot of people who have been on the progressive left who think that all of a sudden we should have private health care and we should move away from the type of society that we've been living in to one where Mr. Duhem would be more comfortable. He tries to argue it. Honestly, it's a bit silly. It's provoking a conversation, and it's giving you and me the chance to talk about it, but I don't think it's very serious.
I think he points out at one point in this letter, Tom, that he noticed that when he first ran, 15% of the people who came to his party or voted for him were from Quebec Solidaire. Disillusioned then.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that's a number pulled out of thin air. There's no possible way to verify that. He quotes somebody within his own party as being his source for that. Gee whiz, Oh, wow. There's an objective tally. So it's just an argument. It's based on thin air. It's just that. I mean, it's just vapors. He's trying to build up some sort of an idea that he's got people from Quebec Solidaire who would come over to him. He did a really amazing thing the last time around. He went and took Claire Sanson from the CAQ, who was a dissatisfied and disgruntled person who had been convinced she should have gone to cabinet. Then she described herself as being as useful as a potted plant in the National Assembly. Her description, not mine. And she became the way for Eric Duhem to get into press conferences in the National Assembly, because you have to have at least one sitting member. He's, of course, not that person, so he would be hoping somehow to convince somebody in any party, Aaron, to come over to him. I don't think it's going to happen from Quebec Solidaire. It might happen. I could say if it were to happen, I'd say again, it would probably be from the CAQ.
Tom, more importantly, and then I'll move on. Do you agree that after this convention that they have, I think it's over the weekend, right? Long weekend. Is Quebec Solidaire in trouble, or is Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois in trouble?
The party could split apart on this. Not 50-50, but certainly 85-15 or 75-25. In other words, the harder cases, the ones who are with Catherine Dorion out of Quebec City, she ran and won in the last election, 2018, chose not to run in 22. Very original figure, very strong progressive, but a little bit out there. Not everybody's cup of tea. She's exactly the type of case that Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois is talking about when he says, basically, we've got two choices. We can continue to be on the fringes and take pot shots at everything that moves and say none of it's good enough, or we can try to hunker down, come up with policies that'll attract a number of voters, and then we could have a chance of maybe becoming the official opposition, maybe even one day aspire to becoming the government of the province and have better policies than the ones we have now. So I think that that's the real danger he faces. And by the way, since it's being held in a region, it's also going to be a question of who can get bodies into seats, right? Who's going to get people signed up for the convention, somehow get them up there to the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean area for this important convention. So obviously, it'll depend on what the more structured groups, like the trade unions that are very much on side with Quebec Solidaire, are there going to be people who all of a sudden are able to get lifts to go up there if they're more on the Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois side? I would dare say those on the other side are less likely to own vehicles other than their bikes. So that might be a little bit of a long bicycle ride to make it up to Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. So all kidding aside, I think it's really who can organize the most and get bums in seats, period.
We shall see. Let me move on to talk about our favorite whipping boy here in Quebec, and I mean the SAAQ. A computer outage forced the SAAQ to shut down for several hours this morning, including in-person visits to their service outlets. This is my favorite quote, Tom. It says the SAQ explained this by saying it now wants an action plan to limit the impacts during similar events. I'm sorry, hadn't we already done that more than once? What's going on here?
I'm going to take one step back and give you one name, Eric Kerr.
Yeah.
He's a Quebec City MNA. He is, don't you know, the Minister of Cybersecurity and all things computer-esque in the government. It's always falling apart. He was the guy who said that he deserved to be congratulated for what he had done as the SAAQ was falling apart and as we've had any number of other breakdowns. As long as Legault keeps him there, Legault deserves to get his rear end kicked regularly. This guy should not be in cabinet. He should not be in charge of anything. And I'm sorry to personalize it so much, but when it becomes so obvious to everybody who's been watching this thing that we have a ministry there that serves no obvious purpose and a minister who doesn't seem to know what he's doing to begin with, and other departments of the government, like the Automobile Board, how are you supposed to get anything done if you can't operate your computers? And they can't. In fact, as you correctly said in your quote, Aaron, they're saying, well, the next time this happens, maybe we'll know what to do to deal with it. Look, it's just pathetic. Your tax dollars at work, as usual.
It is kind of embarrassing, isn't it? Kind of wondered, do you think anyone who with the Arrive Can app might have worked on the SAAQ platform?
Well, at least they would have gotten rich.
Yeah, at our expense. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask, speaking of getting rich, I'm sure you've followed, I asked this as a question today when we came back, this idea where Premier Legault was asked about that sunshine list, right, where we publish the names or salaries, rather, of employees making over, say, $100,000 a year. Yeah. Something Ontario's been doing for more than 20 years, by the way.
Right.
And he said no.
Back when $100,000 was
actually real money, right. And the Premier is saying, no, we don't need to do that. You can actually go and find this data on your own. Take the time, do a deep dive. You'll come up with it. What do you make of that?
It's so insulting. It is so insulting. It's taxpayers' money. Taxpayers have a right to know where there's money being spent. But I don't know if you saw today's Journal de Montréal, but it's actually worse on the federal side, Aaron. They won't even give, never mind the names, they won't even give the position that the person has, and they've come up with this fabulous number of people in Ottawa. Like, forget about $100,000. That's so 20 years ago. Now this is the list of people who have jobs that pay over $200,000 in the federal government. The number is massive, but they're crossing out all the names have been blanked out, and even the positions. So you can't even know who's making all this ridiculous money to be lead-bottom bureaucrats in the federal departments. It's amazing. So I think that the only way to get that changed is to vote in people, both provincially and federally, who make this a top priority, saying the public has the absolute right to know who's making this much money above a certain limit, and then just do exactly like Ontario's been doing for 20 years, as you correctly say. Just publish it. It's their money. Let the people, they have the right to know.
Doesn't it, sort of, and I try to make this point, Tom, doesn't it just give you the impression that if you had nothing to hide, and I'm not even suggesting they do, but it makes it seem like they do by simply saying, no, we don't need to do that here.
It was Legault who was the worst today. I mean, it was just so insulting. You know, this is the guy who got in on a wave of saying how bad the Liberals were. Interesting, today's Léger poll is showing a little bit of a bump for the Liberals, even with, an interim leader. So I think that a lot of people across the province are just saying, look, show me somebody who's credible. And that would include, by the way, the couple of percentages that we saw. He's down to 27%. All of a sudden, this big bubble around Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon is starting to slowly lose its air. And so keep an eye on Quebec politics. The Liberals have not said their last word as long as they can come up with a decent leader.
All right. What did you make of that, by the way? I said to Jim Manny when we talked about this, imagine how if things kept going this way, Mark Tanguay, who's already the only person who said he doesn't want to run and won't run for leadership of the party, ends up doing best in the polls. I mean, that's the upside down world of provincial politics we live in.
Yeah, so. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. He went up 2 points to 8%. So let's
next thing it'll be 9, then it'll be 10, Tom, and then who knows what'll happen after that.